ॐ सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो Ramakrishnaaya te namaha. Today we are entering a new chapter, chapter 4th of Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master as the spiritual teacher, first part. And the name of the chapter is The First Manifestation of the Mood of the Spiritual Teacher. In Bengali, the name is Guru Bhaver Purva Vikas. Purva Vikas sounds not like first manifestation, preliminary manifestation. But later on in the chapter, Saradananda Swami has used Pratham Prakash. So the heading is not wrong. Meaning is that the Guru Bhava is yet to manifest, but something has manifested. That is the meaning of Purva Vikas. Manifestation. Remember, Vikas in Bengali does not mean development. What is the translation in Marathi? Heading.
Heading Guru Avishkar.
Avishkar. Vikas means Avishkar. Vikas means unfoldment. Vikas Bengali is used for bud becoming a flower. Prakash and Vikas are used in the same sense in Bengali. Unfoldment in English. Manifestation. So, now what happens, why I am telling is, there are Sanskrit words. And Sanskrit words are accepted in all North Indian languages. But the shades are very different. And so the confusion comes. Now the Marathi translation has been excellent, as I have been telling you. So they have not made any mistake. But the common reader will make mistakes. There are many Bengali words. For example, hinsa, ahimsa. It is used in the sense of jealousy or absence of jealousy. In no other Indian language it is used like that. Hinsa means killing. Bengali hinsa means jealousy. Coming from Sanskrit, but the shades are completely different. Another very common word with Marathis, Adar. In Marathi, Adar means respect. In Bengali, Adar means in Marathi, which is a lad. Expression of affection or love. Totally different. So one must remember this. Okay. Now, as I told you, the spiritual mood, Guru Bhav, as we understood up till now, has to manifest. Body and mind should be ready to manifest that. But even before that time has come, it manifests. That is that first manifestation or Purva Vikas. And the shloka used there is that telling us that he is not a man. In man, this is not possible. A man does sadhana, becomes perfect. We have seen in the last chapter. And then perchance he becomes a guru. That is man's life. Remember, in the preface I had told this point. Sadhanar samay hoite. From the time of his sadhana, not time after his sadhana. And that will be mentioned here very clearly in this and the next chapter. So we are talking of God only. But we see him as man. So the Gita Shlok is given. Now why God becomes man? Because God in his abstract aspect is difficult for man to reach. To help man, Yogi Arvind has said God becomes man so that man may become God. Man has to find his real nature, which is God. And this he cannot do without the help of a human being. And that is what Swami Vivekananda has said again and again. That we cannot make any concept of Ishvara unless we have seen an incarnation. So man requires God to become man. And to help him, God becomes man. And as soon as he becomes man, man does not understand. That is the problem with man. Man says, oh, he is a man. And that is what used to happen, even today happens, that Thakur is a man. I remember one thing. When I was in Rishikesh, 78, 79, there was a brahmachari. In South Africa, there were private centers at that time. And he was from one of them. He had come to Rishikesh, staying with Kailash Ashram to learn scriptures. Now he used to say, to take some name, that the Shivananda people in South Africa used to say, why you are worshipping Ramakrishna? He is not even a saint. He is an ordinary man. No, this is not a new phenomenon. In Krishna's time, Shishupal used to say he is a thief. He has stolen my wife. And so, in the Rama's time, Thakur said only 12 rishis had understood that he is out there. Of course, there are other people also. Among the rishis, there may be 12. But the fun is that some very simple people, due to the purity of the mind, due to some faith, understand that he is out there. I am giving two names. We have heard that shloka, Achandala Pratyatare. Guha Chandal knew that he is incarnation, Ram is incarnation. And Shabari believed Ram is incarnation because her guru told her. That's her fine. Anyway, So in our present times, and as days pass by, more and more people understand. That is the fun. And that is the difference between incarnation and some other spiritual teacher. Some spiritual teacher arises and he has a large following or small following. And when he dies, there is no sampradaya to continue. And that is why Thakur has been called Acharyana Mahacharya. He has set up a machine. You know, in joke, Ramakrishna Mission is called Ramakrishna Machine. So, the Gita Shlok is given. Avajananti mamura manushim tanumashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Param bhavam, my real nature, my superior nature, ajananto, not knowing. What is that superior nature? Bhuta maheshwaram. I am the great ruler of all the beings. Not knowing this, Muda, those with deluded brains, Mam avajananti. They insult me. Insult me in the sense they do not give me proper respect to me. Insult. About this insult, I will tell you a funny thing. Sun is above us, far, far above us. And it is shining in such a brilliance that it is impossible to look directly at the sun. So we see the reflection of the sun in a pond. And say, see, he is below us. That is what happened. So, Saradananda Swamiji is warning, telling us so many things through this heading or this shloka. Remember, you have to use your spiritual intelligence to understand Thakur's glory. And without understanding that, you cannot progress spiritually. And so, he will point out manifestation of Guru Bhava in Thakur when he was a mere child. So let us now see the chapter. We find the mood of the spiritual teacher manifested in the master from his childhood straight away. Though it must be admitted that his full manifestation took place in his youth. He is not just some miracle monger. He is telling facts. When he attained the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in youth, when he attained the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then the mood is fully manifested. He has explained that to us very nicely in last 3 chapters. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then Mahamukha. And that is the real Guru. But before all that, he already has manifested. But not so plentiful as will after that. Not full manifestation. Let no one think that the above statement is an exaggeration of fact, intended to extol the master's greatness. If anybody critically studies the master's life without any bias, he will see that he will never be tempted to enter in the rear. There will be no exaggeration. When we study Sri Ramakrishna, there is no chance of exaggeration. The highest or greatest thing we feel, he will be more than that. This itself will appear like an exaggeration. But Sadhana Swamiji is stating facts. Let anybody study as much as it lies in his power. The events of this extraordinary life, And he will after all find that it is his power of judgment itself that gets baffled. Yes. We have some power of judgment and we try to study Sri Ramakrishna, that power will get baffled, bewildered and benumbed. Power will get baffled, bewildered, wonder, and benumbed. We will not be able to proceed at all. Remember the story in the Kenopanishad, Yaksha came and the Agni went to find out who he is, and when he went there he was stunned, he could not speak even. Our own minds were not a little suspicious. He is the direct proof. Many of us doubted, tested, and examined the Master more critically than it will perhaps even occur to many in the present age. Swami Vivekananda and his disciples critically, as much critical power they had, Sadhana you don't have at all. As much critically an incarnation can be tested. I remember here a funny thing. In Rishikesh, myself and Vidyut Maharaj, we went for a bandara. Now, due to mistake of the informer, we reached much earlier. There was a book lying there about rules of the ashram. So Vidyut Maharaj picked up. And the first rule was that devotees and visitors should never critically examine the sadhu's behavior. He passed it on to me. I said, our Thakur says, sadhu ke dine dekhi, raat mein dekhi, tagun vishwas kar. And he's always open. Anyway, many of us doubted, tested, and examined the Master more critically than it will perhaps even occur to many in the present age. It is difficult to enumerate the occasions when most of us, doubting the Master, went to test him and got defeated and hung our heads in shame. We have given the reader a little indication of this already in the second chapter about that Mani Mohan lost his son and several matters. And much will have to be given later. The reader then will be in a position to judge for himself. Many things he will tell later on, so reader can judge. Now, what is the principle behind all this? Fruits first, flowers next. This is the peculiar trait of all divine incarnations. They are doing sadhana, but before that the siddhi has come. There are some creepers like that, na? Your bottle gourd, pumpkin. There the fruit comes first and then the flower comes. The Master always used to quote in connection with the lives of the eternally free Ishwar Kotis, the saying, fruits first, flowers next, as is the case with the creepers called gourds. Yes. Gourds is the general English name. And in all gourds variety, the fruits first. The meaning of the saying is that this is about Ishwar Kotis. The meaning of the saying is that whatever practice they are seen to undertake for achieving perfection in matter spiritual is for the purpose of showing people that they will have to undertake similar practices in order to achieve similar results. Their sadhana is a demonstration. Demonstration now not only how to do sadhana, but that you must do sadhana. Otherwise, that is a great point. If incarnations or these people do not do sadhana, people will think it is automatically received. Important statement. From a critical study of the lives of these persons, one fact stands out. It is this: that from their childhood they behave in every matter in a way which is possible only for those who are already in full possession of their knowledge, for the acquisition of which they seem to work so hard. Their actions can be explained only from the point that they already realized God. But they appear to struggle for getting it. It is as if the knowledge is already there from their very commencement of their life. This is about Ishwar Koti, Jivan Mukta. When this holds good even in the case of Ishwar Kotis, it is superfluous to say that it applies to the divine incarnations. Ishwara himself. The manifestation of such knowledge in them is seen throughout their lives. So is it written in the scriptures. About this, let me tell one incident, though I wanted to tell it during Sadhak Bhav. My teacher, you will see Mahapuruji's photo. He is sitting on a chair, little bent forward and hands folded. Because that is only a photo. Had that been a video, in that position he used to utter Ramakrishna, 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 Ramakrishna. My Guruji approached him. What is this, Maharaj? Always Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna. They said, why? Should I not take God's name? He said, why is he a God? Was he not a human being? Then Mahaprabhu said, why? Why are you calling me a human being? Because he did sadhana. Why will God do sadhana? Only human being will do sadhana. So because he did sadhana, I think he is a human being. Then Mahaprabhuji became, word excited may not be correct, but spiritually aroused, you may say. And he stood up from the chair. Tell me, during which sadhana he appears as a man? Take any example. Totapuri said, ये क्या देवी माया है? The thing for which I struggled 40 years. And this person has attained in one day. And then Mahaprabhuji would add, is it possible for a man to do like this? Is it possible for a saint to do like this? Is it possible for a superman to do like this? Take another sadhana. Bhairavi brought a woman, made her remove all the clothes and asked Thakur to sit on her lap and do japa. And when Thakur sat on the lap, he went into samadhi. And he would repeat those things. Can a man do like this? Can a saint do like this? Can a superman do like this? Sadhana after sadhana, Mahapurush Maharaj took. And asked him, during which sadhana you see him as a man? Simply that he did sadhana, you are concluding as a man. See the sadhana. Understood this point? And Saradananda Swami is stating here that sadhana is the real glory in Sri Ramakrishna's life. Because the people have lost spiritual religion. And just some forms, some rituals or something, nobody is doing sadhana. So the imperative need for sadhana plus what is the model sadhana, that we shall see in Sadhak Bhav. And that is what Saradananda Swami is stating. Their minds work on the same Saradananda Swami Mahaprabhu. And he says, so it is written in the scriptures. If you study scriptures properly. And it is also seen that there is a great similarity between many of the actions of the incarnations of different ages. That is, it is not something strange. All incarnation there is a similarity. Of different ages. We find, for example, the fact of transmitting spirituality to others by touch in the lives of every one of them. Jesus, Sri Chaitanya and Sri Ramakrishna. Similarly, we find many other events of like nature in their life. Some particular holy men were informed in a superhuman way of the advent of these incarnations. Your Shudiram was informed, his mother was informed. The mood of the spiritual teacher was manifest in them from their childhood. Common points he is telling. So you will not find it in the world, but if you compare the incarnation, then you will find it. They knew from their boyhood that they had come down on earth out of compassion as incarnations in order to show a special path to the people in general. There are many other facts as well. Therefore, no one should be surprised to hear that the mood of the spiritual teacher was manifest in the master's life from his childhood. The incarnations are a class by themselves. One will fall into a great error if one thinks that because such events cannot happen in the lives of ordinary men, they cannot occur in the lives of incarnations also. This does not extend there. The first manifestation of the mood of the spiritual teacher in the master's life. Now it comes to the event. A discussion on the scriptures in a meeting of Pandits at the house of the Lahas at Kamar. Lahas were the landlords of Kamar. And there is an incident. We find a very clear instance of the first manifestation of the mood of the spiritual teacher in the life of the master at Kamarpukur. Kamarpukur is birthplace. He had then been invested with the sacred thread and he must have been about 9 or 10 years of age. He points out sacred thread because to find the age. The well-known scholars of that part of the country were invited on the occasion of a Shraddha ceremony to the house of the Lord. Shraddha is in memory of departed souls, offering to them. And generally Pandits are invited, the landlords of that village. And as is usual, when many scholars came together, there started a heated controversy among them. Scholars, so they are discussing. When no decision on a particular disputed point in the scripture could be arrived at, the boy Gadadhar, Thakur's name was Gadadhar. The boy Gadadhar said to a scholar known to him, "Can't the point at issue be decided this way?" Many boys, now he is comparing, many boys of the village came to the meeting out of curiosity, and they could not understand even a little of the meaning of the noisy controversy accompanied by the gesticulations of the scholars. Some of these boys took all this as a huge joke and were laughing. Some others were mimicking the gestures of the scholars and were making a loud noise, while others were completely indifferent to it and engaged themselves in playing. Shraddha ceremony, children also gathered. Therefore, this scholar was not a little surprised to see that that wonderful boy had listened with patience to what they had said, understood everything, and arrived at the right conclusion by reflecting on the matter. He then told the others known to him about Gadadhar's conclusion. You know the incident now? These days our brahmacharis know what had happened. You know? What was the point of discussion which Thakur told? I have a vague idea. I have been told, but I did not pay attention. Some Brahmin has been told to consume food of a chandal. Is it against the scriptures or how he can do it? If he does not do, then his guru's command will be falsified. And if he does, he will be outcasted. So Thakur tells, let both of them go to Puri. And their caste is not observed. Then let the Chandala take prasad of Puri. And that if he gives to the Brahmin, there will be no problem. Like that Thakur told. I'm not telling exactly, this incident is some such thing. Knowing that it was the only possible solution regarding the disputed point, they explained it to all others. Thakur told one Pandit, he told his friends, they told all others. All then admitted unanimously that it was the only rational solution regarding the appointed dispute. And we are looking for the person whose keen intellect was the first to see that wonderful solution. And when they came to know that it was the boy Gadadhar who had said it, some of them became astounded. And thinking the boy to be possessed of divine powers, remained gazing steadfastly at him. They could not recognize his incarnation, but divine powers. While others, filled with joy, took him in their laps and blessed him. Small child. Now he discusses similarity. A similar event in the life of Jesus in the temple of Jehovah at Jerusalem. Here I is first to describe the places of pilgrimage, how they used to go, what used to happen. It is necessary to discuss the subject a little more. There is an event recorded in the Bible. Footnote is given Luke 2:2. Exactly similar to this in the life of Jesus, an incarnation of the divine Lord and the founder of the Christian religion. He was then 12 years of age. His poor, God-fearing father Joseph and mother Mary started that year on foot with him in the company of other pilgrims from his native village of Nazareth in the province of Galilee in order to pay visit to the deity in the famous temple at Jerusalem and offer worship, sacrifice, etc. there. This place of pilgrimage of the Jews was like the pilgrim centers of the Hindus. Here the devout aspirant felt blessed by directly experiencing the manifestation of Jehovah in the gold casket and worship the deity by burning incense on an altar before him and by offering leaves and flowers, fruits and roots, and by sacrificing beasts and birds like sheep, pigeons, etc. The sacrificing of pigeons and other birds in the Hindu places of pilgrimage like Kamakhya and Vindhyavasini is in vogue even today. Similarity. The Jewish pilgrimage of those days. Worship offering and sacrifices being over, Joseph and Mary started with their companions towards their village. At that time, the condition of the pilgrims coming from various quarters to visit Jerusalem was to a certain extent similar to that of those proceeding on foot to Puri and other places of pilgrimage before railways had been laid. That long narrow path, beautified here and there by trees, wells, ponds, those places of rest called inns. It is said there was also no lack of charitable guest houses. Sarai is in Dharmashala is charitable guest house. Those guide priests, Pandas will be always there in pilgrim places. The inevitable companions of pilgrims, guide priests. Those grocer shops where the necessary provisions are available, shop centers sprout up near the temple. Puja articles. That dust, those swarms of mosquitoes which rendered a friendly service to the pilgrims by preventing their forgetting their religious thoughts in sleep and idleness. That undertaking of journeys by pilgrims in great numbers so as to be of help to one another against robbers and thieves. And last, that simple faith and dependence on God. Jesus explained the scriptures in the temple of Jehovah. All were there. When Jesus' parents found that he was not with them, they thought that he was perhaps coming behind the party with some other pilgrim boys. That means they have finished everything, they are going back. And they see Jesus is not there. But even after traveling a long distance, when they found Jesus not coming up, they were greatly perturbed. And when a thorough search in the big party revealed that he was not with them, they anxiously turned their steps toward Jerusalem again. They looked for him in various places there, but could get no information about him. At last they entered the temple in search of him and found that the boy Jesus was sitting and discussing the scriptures among the sadhakas well versed in them, and was charming all by his lucid, inspired explanation of the complicated points of dispute which confounded even the scholars. Similar, Thakur told one problem, he was telling many problems. The refutation of the opinion of the great Orientalist and scholar Max Muller. What is the connection? I told you in the beginning that the book which we read by Max Muller, Life and Teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, was actually written by Saradananda. Swami Vivekananda approached Max Muller. Max Muller had written an article, The Real Mahatma, in 19th century. It was a beautiful article. Swami Vivekananda thought if Max Muller writes a life, then the world will be influenced easy. So he approached Max Muller and said, why not write a life? He said, whatever material I had written an article. Now if you people give me material, I can write a book. Sardar Swamiji had just then arrived in London. So Swami Vivekananda told him, you collect material and we shall go to Max Muller. Now collect material means what? He wrote a life and handed over to Swamiji. Swamiji read that, made some corrections here and there and handed over to Max Muller. Max Muller added his comments here and there and published it. Now that comment he is describing. The great scholar Max Muller has expressed a doubt in his life and sayings of Ramakrishna about the truth of the incident in the Master's life. Just stated above, on the ground of its great similarity with the corresponding incident in the life of Lord Jesus, just mentioned. He has not even shrunk from passing the uncharitable remark that the English-knowing disciples of Sri Ramakrishna have introduced the story of Jesus' childhood into the life of their master in order to heighten the latter's greatness. Although the scholar has thus displayed his keen intellect, we are helpless and prefer not to dilate upon it further. For we have heard of that event of the master's childhood from many old people of his birthplace, Kamarpukur. They had no English knowledge, they did not know Bible. From them, disciples have heard about this incident. And also from the master himself on several occasions. So Thakur is a Satyavadi. And many Old people of Kamarpukur are telling that incident. So where is the question of bringing from Christ and Paishti? So this was the first incident. Now it takes up a very, very big issue in the life of Thakur, Guru Bhav. Guru Bhav does not mean preaching and teaching by mouth only. Setting up a model is Guru Bhav. And he himself has raised the question. And we will give several solutions of that on a higher and higher level. And we will tell no, it is only because he is incarnation. It is only because for teaching us that he has done this. That is his method. Not Shankaracharya's Nanukal. He himself describes explanation from a lower point, then from a higher point, then from a still higher point. And then he'll say all these are not fit, he is from the highest point. So here, incident and the first solution. At the request of relatives, did he marry? And no, that answer. This is the parody. When studying the master's life, one is confronted with the question, why did he marry? Why did a person who was never inclined to have any carnal relationship with his wife marry at all? It is of course difficult to find the reason. Difficult means deeper you have to go. To the suggestion, that means some people will tell like this. To the suggestion that his relatives married him against his will, when on reaching youth, he became almost mad owing to his constant thinking of God, we reply, it is silly to entertain such an idea. From a childhood, no one could get anything done by him against his will, on however trivial a matter. Again, this side, again, whenever he wanted to do anything, he never failed to accomplish it by some means or other. People's opinion, if he has not liked, he will not do. And his opinion, if people do not like, he will do. Not as an adamant, arrogant child. As the incarnation, he knows more than the people. Take for instance, he is having for his Bhikshamata a blacksmith woman named Dani. This you have to understand. At the time of Upanayan, somebody other than one's own mother, but equivalent in some respect to the mother. From that, the first begging has to be done. The Batu, when he gets his sacred thread, he has to beg his food. He has to leave many similar things like a sannyasi for 3 days. So the first begging should be from, generally in Indian households, mommy, the aunt. Generally it is begged from her. Or Mausi, Chachi, or somebody who is equivalent to the mother but not actual mother. Now what he did, Dhani, the blacksmith, Dhani was the Dai who helped his birth. She helped Chandra Devi when Thakur was to be born. That is what we call Dai, midwife or something they call it. Take for instance, he is having for his Bhiksha Mata, so she is called Bhiksha Mata, mother for Bhiksha. A blacksmith woman named Dhani at the time of his investiture with the sacred thread. Social rules and regulations were not observed in the village with as much laxity as in Calcutta, hard social rules. So no one could act according to his own sweet will in the village. The master's parents also were not a little orthodox. They were very orthodox, his father. And it was the custom of the family to assign the duty of the Bhikshamata to a Brahmin lady. And all the superiors of the family of the boy Gadadhar were against his receiving Bhiksha from a blacksmith woman. In spite of all this, opposition melted away before Gadadhar's insistence, and then he became Bhikshamata. His insistence was, I have promised her, and if I break my promise, I am not fit for this sacred thread. I will do that. Then the Lahas had to convince Thakur's family members that some people do like that. It may be not be tradition there, but you have to accept it, and that to accept it. This was a matter for no small surprise. Thus it was with all matters. He gives one example in bio. The master's will and words ever prevailed against the wills and desires of others. How then can we say that in such an important event in his life, he merely acquiesced in the mere desires and requests of his relatives? Second likely explanation. For enjoyment. Did he marry for enjoyment? No. It might again be said, what is the necessity of admitting that the master had the idea of renouncing everything out of love of God from his very childhood? We can say instead that the master at first had the desire to marry and enjoy worldly pleasures like us we think of others, like people in general. But that no sooner had he attained maturity than there came about a sudden revolutionary change in his mind and a violent storm of detachment from the world and attachment to God raged in his heart, which overturned all his previous plans and desires. In that case, all objections will be removed in a natural way. All objections are removed if it be said that the master's marriage took place before that storm began to rage. That is the answer. We say that although this explanation is plausible, that means rationally, there are many irrefutable objections against this attitude. Firstly, the master was married at the age of 24. The storm of renunciation was then furiously raging in his heart. And it is quite unlikely that a person like him, who hesitated all his life to give the slightest trouble to anyone for his own sake, should have proceeded thoughtlessly to do an act which he knew full well would be the cause of lifelong suffering for the lady. Within that third point, what the master said when his relatives were in search of a bride. Go and see, the bride is marked with a straw. Therefore, his marriage was voluntary. Marked with a straw? That means in the garden, when the first fruit comes, it should be offered to God. But it will be offered only when it grows. And then it will get mixed up with other fruits. So a straw is tied to that, to indicate that it is for God. Thakur said there is a girl tied with a straw in it. That means reserved for him. Secondly, the more we think, the more can we understand that no act in the master's life was done without a purpose. That is the main thing. Bhava, his very life, his incarnation is for teaching people. And we must learn from him. Thirdly, it is quite certain that he married willingly, for he told his nephew Hriday and all the members of family when they were in search of a bride that it has already been divinely settled that he should be named married to the daughter of Ramchandra Mukhopadhyay of the village of Jairambati. The reader will either be surprised to hear this or will disbelieve it and say, fancy, speaking of such incredible things. Can these statements be accepted in the 20th century? We have to say in reply, whether you believe it or not, it was indeed a fact. There are many still living who will bear it out. Why don't we just investigate? When in their search for a bride, his relatives failed to get one. The master himself said, go and see such and such a girl of such and such a village has been marked with a straw. In footnote, they explained that what I told you just now. Let us read because it seems to be by Saradananda Swamiji. Yes, it is by Saradananda Swamiji. There is a custom in the villages of Bengal that a cultivator attaches as a mark a straw to a fruit like cucumber, etc., which he considers to be very good and desires to offer to the Divine Lord, so that the cultivator himself inadvertently or any of the household unknowingly may not pluck and sell it. How Saradananda Swamiji language, the cultivator inadvertently and others not knowingly. May not pluck and sell it. The master applied the simile to this case, meaning thereby that it was divinely ordained that he should be married to the daughter of such and such a man, that the girl had been reserved as his bride by providence. Another explanation. For experiencing the result of his actions done in previous births that had begun to practice prarabdha vashata. No. Therefore, it is clear that the master knew that he would be married. What was more, he knew also the place of marriage and the person to whose daughter he would be married. He did not tell the name of that girl, so and so's daughter. And he did not raise any objection to that. It was, of course, during his Bhav Samadhi that he had come to know it. So, not in the normal plane, but in a higher plane he had come to know this. What then is the meaning of the master's marriage? So the question comes back. Some reader well versed in the scriptures will perhaps be annoyed and say, how silly, you are raising a storm in a teacup. First consult some scriptures and other books, and then venture to record the events of the lives of great pious souls. Scriptures say that the actions accumulated in previous lives that are yet to bear fruit, Sanchita, and those that are done after the attainment of the knowledge of Brahman, Agami, are all destroyed when God vision or perfect knowledge is attained. But the results of the works done in the previous births that are already bearing fruit, prarabdha, begin to bear fruit. How do we experience in this life even when the knowledge of Brahman is achieved? Suppose there are some arrows, now the explanation is generally given this. Suppose there are some arrows in a quiver tied to the back of a fowler. He has taken in hand one arrow in order to shoot. He shot one a little before at a bird on a tree. Just at this moment, there arises sudden compassion in the mind of the fowler, and he resolves he will no more injure any living being. He throws away the arrows in his hand and also the arrows on his back. But can he withdraw the arrow he has already shot at the bird? The arrow on his back are, as it were, his actions accumulated in past life, Sanchita. The arrow in his hand represents future agami acts after realization, which he is yet to do in this life. But these kinds of acts are destroyed on the acquisition of knowledge. But his prarabdha acts are like the arrow he has already discharged. Its result he has to experience. Great, he stating the explanation fully and then telling it is not like that. That is common with Shankaracharya. He states opponent's view very beautifully. Great souls like Sri Ramakrishna experience the results of their prarabdha actions only while conscious in their body. That means through body only that has to be done. The experiencing of the results is inevitable, and they know and understand what kinds of events will happen in their lives according to their prarabdha acts. Therefore, it was not extraordinary for Sri Ramakrishna to mention where and to whom his own marriage would take place. In reply to the above objection, we say that we are really quite unlearned in the scriptures. That is the start point. But so far as we know, we can say that a man of right knowledge has not got to experience even the results of his prarabdha action. What is the difference here? Right knowledge. What is the solution? In Vivekananda, Shankara has discussed it at a great length. Nididhyasana Shilasya, one who is Jnananishta, many of his things are similar to Jnani, but he is still a struggler. And for him, this prarabdha works. But for a full knowledge, it does not work. That is the point Saradananda Swamiji is stating. For he has dedicated to God forever the mind which feels pain and pleasure when there is the possibility in his mind of experiencing pain and pleasure. That means I itself is not there. Around the I, this prarabdha comes. But if you say that prarabdha actions are experienced in his body, how is even that possible? Shankar's arguments are there, all these, in Vivekananda. If he by his own will keeps a little of I-ness for some reason or other, as for instance doing good to others, he becomes conscious of his mind and body again and simultaneously experience the results of prarabdha. That means a jnani, if he likes, he can go through prarabdha. If he does not, he will not. Therefore, men of right knowledge can experience or abstain from experiencing at will the results of those actions. Such is the power they attain. That is why they are called the conquerors of the worlds, the conquerors of death, all knowing, and so on. There is a parody. The case of the master needs no mention, for his words are, one who was Rama and Krishna is now Ramakrishna. Again, if we are to believe the experience of Sri Ramakrishna himself, he cannot even be classed among the ordinary men of absolute knowledge. For we have heard him say again and again, one who was Rama and Krishna is now Ramakrishna. That is, he who incarnated himself as Rama and Krishna in past ages is present in the form of Sri Ramakrishna and is manifesting wonderful divine sport. If one is to believe this, one must admit that he is an incarnation of God, eternally pure, eternally awakened, and eternally free. That is the nature of God. And when one admits that, one cannot say that he is under the control of prarabdha. Therefore, we have to take a different decision about the master's marriage which we give below. So after that, the real explanation follows. That also in some steps you take. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम तत्सत। श्री रामकृष्ण अर्पणमस्तु।
Jaya